How many Jason Statham movies have you seen?
Not enough. Not nearly
It's
enough.
great.
I feel like I would be a better man had I seen
really
them all,
love the Hobbs and Shaw franchise,
which I still haven't dug into. My
What?
Fast and Furious phase was in high school.
For sure, 100%. But obviously that one came out way later. Fun fact, his character in the Fast and Furious series was supposed to be named, or initially, not supposed to be, was initially named Ian Shaw. And then they changed his name to Deckard.
Never met a Decker.
I know. I was
Deckard.
Deckard. Yeah.
Deckard.
My friends sent it to me because they were like, Jason Statham is going to be playing the brother of the villain from the last one, and he's going to be named Ian Shaw in the upcoming movie. And then they changed it, but I have a screenshot of like someone posting that.
That's
somewhere.
Incredible.
So yeah, I thought that was fun.
Wow.
I've also gotten, like, when I buzz my head, I've gotten that I look like Jason Statham a little bit.
That's never a bad thing.
That's not.
It's really not.
100%.
The world needs to know.
We are back.
Hello,
oh my God,
everyone.
you guys! Like 2 weeks in a row. What is this?
And now I am local to the Fate Boys studio. I'm here next to Ian.
I can touch you now.
It's so good to be back in the dojo with brother Ian.
Hell yeah, we're doing it. All right, so without further ado,
it's my turn.
Patrick gets
this
to pick.
Week, everyone. Okay,
Fate jar.
Lest you forget what we're doing here. Oh yeah, this
ASMR.
one. This one's calling
early morning ASMR. Yeah. What is it?
King Kong. Everybody.
Really?
Who put that in there?
I don't know.
King Kong.
I'm about it.
Okay. All right. Let's just do it.
I'm about it. We're talking about movies. I think Statham would do great in a King Kong movie.
I agree. Yeah.
I think he would be excellent.
Yeah, because he's got the sharp wit and the action hero archetype down, but could definitely bring some more nuance to something that has been one-dimensional in the past. Yes.
Well, I think the story is interesting. So let's kind of dive into the narrative, right? So we have a island that is obscured by natural forces intentionally, where
Skull Island, everybody
has been left alone forever, right? Just untouched,
presumably millions of years, and
so evolution has been able to take its own course with its own geographical area special to this place, which is why these monsters
can exist.
Exactly.
And supposedly it's in the Indonesia, Polynesia type area, like Borneo.
And then we have the classic trope of the expedition team that is going to this island. I can't remember initially in the original what was the reason for going to the island, if it was for like exploration of places unknown, or if it was resources, or if it was legend, and they're like, I need to go there because I've heard about this thing. I can't remember.
Well, that's the beauty, and I think each King Kong movie has taken a different stab at it. So if I recall, in Peter Jackson's King Kong,
that was the one with Jack Black, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That one was a matter of desperation for Jack Black's character. His career was going down the drain. He somehow got a hold of a map to Skull Island.
Okay.
I think somehow he heard about it and, finagled the resources to get there. But for him, it was like a Hail Mary to get rich quick, save his career, be famous, and really be a part of something unforgettable, something immortal.
Okay, so it was more about legacy. Yeah, it was explorative, but it was like legacy.
Yeah,
it's like I need to be remembered for something. Okay.
Yeah. What was Skull Island? John Goodman.
Oh, Skull Island.
Skull Island.
That one was they were searching for.
It was Vietnam War.
It was based
era.
on the Hollow Earth theory. Yeah, Vietnam era. And John Goodman plays. Oh, by the way, audience, we're going to be spoilering constantly.
Yeah, so sorry if you haven't seen them yet.
You haven't seen these? I mean, you should have.
It's really your fault. So
at this point, yeah, we're blaming the audience. Anyway, we're just going to be spoilering all over the place. But John Goodman and homie who was in.
He's Loki. Tom Hiddleston.
No. I'm talking about his like assistant. He played. It wasn't Tupac. What movie was he in? He played Dr. Dre in that biopic about
I haven't seen that one.
NWA.
Oh,
Oh God, what was the name of that movie? It was excellent. Anyway,
oh,
he played Dr. Dre's character. Anyway, he's a great actor. I can't remember his
cool,
name. Totally spacing it.
cool.
Um, but they are part of this secret organization called Monarch,
Mm-hmm.
which, if people who don't know, it's this organization that is tracking all of
The kaiju.
these anomalous beasts, and their intention is to actually work with them, to protect them, to preserve them, not necessarily destroy them. And so we needed to keep an eye on them because they've been popping up like Godzilla and all these other entities.
Mm-hmm.
And so they come up with this theory about where these beings come from. And the theory is the hollow earth theory, which is a bigger theory
Mm-hmm.
outside of the context of just this world. But
Mm-hmm.
they have this idea that this is where is the population of these beings come from places that have this earth that's hollow. And so they get these graphs where they have these projections around this island that has been obscured by these storms and no one ever goes there, and these weather patterns. And so they're pretty confident like this is going to be like a hotspot for these things. And so they get an airlift in from a military convoy who were just getting at the end of Vietnam War.
That's right. That's right.
And that's Samuel Jackson's character, and he's like kind of like the war hungry.
Yeah.
He goes over there. He feels like they should have done more. He doesn't want to abandon the campaign, but he's following orders. And so when an order comes in for him to stay and to continue doing military stuff, he's like
He's all about it.
So he goes and rallies his troop of people who had just gotten their papers to go back, and he's like, "Hey, who's still in?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Fine."
Yeah.
So they begrudgingly go, and they drop these guys off, or they take them as a military escort to this island, unbeknownst to them that all of this craziness is going to pop off.
Yeah.
But
that one was solid.
Oh my God.
That was a very decent movie.
It was one of the few movies that I own that I like bought.
Really?
I bought it on like iTunes or whatever. Like I have it on my iPad and stuff. Like when I travel, like it's so rewatchable. Like the action is amazing. The dialogue's great. It's a monster movie fest. Like that's so well done. The acting is solid. And it's very rewatchable. It's very enjoyable.
Especially if for all of the OG fans of Godzilla, King Kong, Mothra, all that good stuff, Kong Skull Island really does a service to that whole universe. And it's so fun too. It's just just a good time.
Yeah.
It does not take itself too seriously. I think Peter Jackson's King Kong is more for like the diehards who are really, really invested
in the story
because
they follow more of the traditional narrative of that one.
It's definitely more archetypal.
Yeah,
it pulls from the archetype of King Kong and what he represents, and the Beauty and the Beast kind of foil.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I want to go into that kind of tableau that they paint, kind of that picture that.
There's a whole canvas of themes that can be explored.
Right. So they have like the monster who's misunderstood, right?
And timeless too. He's prehistoric, untouched by civilization.
He has his own civilization though. It's like he's not exposed to human beings.
But humans are subordinate. They're subordinate to natural law.
Right. They pay homage to him. That's why he's called King Kong. Not just Kong.
And Kong is not a mindless beast either. He lives among sort of mindless reptilian and insect beasts, but he himself is quite human and relatable and deep.
Well, he has a protector archetype, but he's also one that doesn't take shit.
No.
Like in Kong Skull Island, he is just wreaking havoc on the people who are trying to destroy him. You know, like they're trying to shoot him with missiles and stuff. He's like, not today. He's just slapping helicopters down.
I think this is the big one on top of all of that, is that he's lonely and one of a kind.
Well, he did have a family.
He did have a family.
And they all got wiped out. and so he's in like complete isolation and feels very alone because he is one off. And it's interesting because then we can start tying into this idea of like it's called King Kong,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
talking about being king, and heavy is the crown,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this idea that when you are operating your life from this position where you take that level of authority over your life
Mm-hmm.
in general, you can extrapolate it out, but it's there is this sense of not isolation, but like you are alone
Yeah.
and that no one else has that mantle. You're not running that with anybody.
He can never relax because the entire jungle is trying to test him all the time.
He is holding that line continuously, and he's the only like the only barrier to balance
Mm-hmm.
on that island. So without him, everything would fall into chaos. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting like how that shows up in life in general.
Mm.
So I would pose that as a question to you, Patrick. We can kind of take this on a personal note.
Ooh.
How does that sit with you? That kind of concept of when you step into your kinghood and the isolation that happens therein, what do you experience, or what are the things that come up for you in that?
Well, I'm thinking about responsibility. For this island belongs to me. The balance belongs to me and is beholden to me. And at the same time, there's many ways I could come at it, but when I feel like if I'm the king of Skull Island and I would want to protect it and make it as beautiful and fruitful as possible.
So in this analogy, what is Skull Island to you?
Skull Island would be my sphere of influence, my life as I know it, the patterns of behavior that I have control over, the people that interface inside my circle and visit my island, the resources that I currently have access to, and it's constantly growing and changing. There are seismic forces afoot,
Yes.
and I'm thinking of Kong's attitude, where he's so powerful as a creature that he because he's always being tested by the extraneous forces of life, be that they other rival creatures like the tyrannosaurs, the insects. You have human beings coming in from the outside to
Mm-hmm.
upset the balance and bring massive change, good or bad,
Yeah.
and new insights into what's possible. Um, but then Kong does have moments where he's just relaxing and eating sticks of bamboo, and
Yeah.
sometimes he'll like mess up a T-Rex just for fun,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And he does have a sense of humor too, so he's not one dimensional whatsoever,
No,
right?
he definitely has like this depth of character. I think that's what makes the story so compelling. Is it isn't just a one dimensional uh, entity, nor is the story just one dimensional, because you can look at it also from like the sacrificial
Right.
woman kind of mentality, because they like capture her in the Jack Black
Yep.
version,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they offer her up as sacrifice, and that's apparently been the way
Mm-hmm.
of things. And I don't necessarily know because they don't obviously go into what's happened before. Like, what has
Yeah,
Kong done before that? Like,
they just show the bones of all of the people,
yeah.
before Naomi Watts, the main
Hmm.
actress, but she's the first one to say no,
Right.
like put
She's
me
not,
down,
yeah,
and
she's
he's
not,
not used to that.
yeah, he's not used to having, they go willingly
Yeah,
because they understand like that's part of the balance of the island, I guess.
I want to hit your original question one more time just to put a
Mm,
cap on it.
sure,
One thing
please.
that really strikes me about Kong is because he is, he's very primal. He's very much a creature of his home, but he's human enough to where he's relatable and to really hone in on what you had asked me. Kong really speaks to me because he's a very like integrated being in many ways. Like for me, it has taken me this long to really access my more root primal sacral self.
Mm.
And Kong is a really great representation of it. I think the Jack Black one does a little bit of a better job, but he's
It stays more true to the
yeah,
story. I think they're setting up a whole other narrative with
yeah.
Kong Skull
There's a lot
Island
more
because it
threads
fits
getting
into,
pulled.
yeah, because they're trying to tie in Godzilla, which they
Yeah,
do. Anyway,
yeah.
continue.
But yeah, he's just like a really powerful, fierce creature, but he has a gentle heart too.
Mm.
So when he does meet his his beauty, it
Mm-hmm.
totally softens him and gives him a reason to live
Is
that
that
wasn't
Brie
there before.
Larson?
In the new ones.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah,
new
yeah,
ones,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. But I think Kong is just a super relatable archetype, especially for men that can relate with me, where if you grew up in a situation where it wasn't easy to be angry or to access your more fierce self,
Mm-hmm.
you know um funny enough, Kong is actually a great example of like how to kind of get back in touch with that root chakra level of self. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's what was speaking to me about Kong.
nice. Yeah, I think that there's a powerful message in that. I think in the idea of like when to turn on the ferocity.
Yeah.
I don't think he does it really out of
Malice.
yeah, malice or ignorance. I think he does it very intentionally, which requires a level of understanding of a larger picture. If you're going to be
Hmm.
operating in that way, is to like really understand what is going to happen. What are the repercussions of
Hmm.
this action? Which is why he doesn't go hunting for the
No.
lizard creatures. He like deals with them as they come about to keep them at bay because he understands if he doesn't keep them at bay, then that's going to elicit a different
Hmm.
reaction. Nor does he go to the place where or cause duress. Like that's why when they started dropping bombs, he got so pissed
Yeah.
because he's like, dude, you all don't know who you're waking up right now.
Hmm.
And it's going to fuck up shit on this island,
Hmm.
and y'all need to stop it.
And you're speaking to one of the larger dynamics that only man can introduce to Skull Island, which is greed, vengeance. Like Samuel L. Jackson comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and when
Oh, he turns into vengeance for sure.
oh yeah, like you said, when they start dropping bombs, they're doing like what, a geological survey or something like
Yeah,
that,
because they're
right?
trying to see. They're dropping these
Seismic
percussion.
charges.
Yeah, to try to like see
Yeah,
the density of the earth, and they
yeah,
confirm that it is hollow.
yeah. And in doing so, Samuel Jackson and his team are flying those helicopters that are dropping those bombs.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kong wakes up, and Kong just doing his job,
That scene,
right?
that scene where they do the like sunset
Yeah.
skyline,
And you
where they
just
have like
see
the camera come up and they just show him standing on the horizon, and everyone's like, "What is that?"
he might as well be a god.
No, 100%. Like and it's interesting why they call him king though, and I still think that that's a fascinating
Yeah.
um, name to apply to him. But I
Yeah.
think it is also very fitting. One thing that I find really interesting about the storyline of the old one and newer renditions and
When did
tellings
that
of
old
it,
one come out? Like 50s?
something
Like animatronics and
right.
puppetry and
But like let's go through the whole narrative here. So let's like just kind of broad strokes it
Mhm.
if we're reading like the cliff notes. So we have humans go to island that
Mhm.
no other Western human has been to. It's been isolated and it's left in time, which is why all these things exist. They're there for either prideful or scavenger or whatever reasons,
Mhm.
exploratory even.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then they encounter this thing that nobody's ever seen before. And the initial reaction is to kill it because they're like, oh my God, big thing, kill.
Yeah.
It's going to kill us. We need to kill it, which is a huge topic in and of itself.
Mhm.
And then
Because
somebody's,
they can't.
and then someone's like, yo, you know what we should do? We
Eighth
should,
wonder of the
we
world.
should capture this thing because
Mhm.
imagine trying to just sell a ticket to see this thing. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit, like this is. And so they end up like drugging it either through gas or something like that,
Mhm.
and then they trap it and then they box it up, they throw it on a ship and then take it back to, I'm assuming it's New York
Yep.
City,
Manhattan.
Manhattan. um, and then surprise surprise, shit don't go well.
What did
Um,
we learn?
what do we learn? And begins to wreak havoc on the city. There is a love dynamic
Yep.
between Kong and the main ingenue, and uh, it's kind of like the Hulk in Avengers with Black Widow. It's like the sky's
Oh,
getting real low, big guy. Like
yeah.
to calm him down. Like
That's a great tie-in, actually.
she's the only person who can have any sort of impact on him
Yeah.
from like a directorial position. Like she's the only one who can change him out of rage, like
Mhm.
just fury, and be like, "Yo, you need to calm it because this ain't right."
And I feel, as you and I both know, when we're in deep, deep anger, frustration, we're feeling it, we're steam's coming out of our ears. That sounds about right. That one of the only things that could really calm us down in a moment would be our loving partner. Just being like, hey,
Well,
it's a
it's
powerful thing.
yeah, it's I think it's that love. I think it's really that
Mhm.
cuts through it is it's something bigger than the emotion that you're feeling in the moment. It's something bigger than like the rage or the anger or the whatever. It kind of cuts through that
Mhm.
uh, and really reaches into to something more altruistic, I guess, or something a
Mhm.
little bit higher
It like brings
vibratory
Kong from his instinctual self.
back into like presence of like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I am
This
kind
is
of
why I'm here.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
I kind of am acting out a little out of sorts. Even though I'm getting shot at by
Yeah,
planes, I'm
yeah.
climbing up this building because all I
Human
know is take
beings.
the high ground, right? So I'm
Yep.
just gonna go ahead and climb this big old tall ass building. Um, and I'm gonna take my token with me because that's the only thing that I really care about in this
Mhm.
entire city is this person. So and then I forget they shoot him down
Yeah. The planes just wear him down.
and then does he die
Yeah.
in the original?
Yeah.
See this
Oh,
why
in the original,
in either or
I think he
in
does, but
Peter
in Peter
Jackson.
Jackson's, he definitely does.
Okay, so that
Yeah,
is
he gets
that,
shot down from the Empire State Building, falls to the ground.
and then just
That's
is no
that.
more. Okay,
That's right.
got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that we're going through this and just kind of like off of memory
I
with
I
no prompt. We're like,
man,
okay,
yeah, I'm a huge Godzilla, King Kong, kaiju.
I know that's why I'm like, I know you would
I
keep
love
me on
it
track.
so much. People can hate me, but I'm Team Godzilla 100%. But
Kong v Godzilla.
yeah,
Well, I think that's
but I've
interesting.
come to love Kong.
I love Kong.
I really
I love
have
Kong.
come to
I
love
understand
Kong.
why they like bicker. Like, I
Yeah.
understand why they are going against each other
Mhm.
and why they are opposing forces. But I also love when they buddy up, like a
So good.
cop buddy
Yeah.
movie where they team
Hobbs and
up.
Shaw.
Yeah, exactly. They team up and go after it.
Yep.
Um, it's very interesting. I love just the interplay and the dynamic between
It's
them.
fun.
I think Godzilla has a very interesting. It's a similar arc,
Yeah.
honestly. He's just doing it on a global scale as opposed to
Mhm.
just on an island. So, like
Yeah.
King Kong, I mean, that's interesting, right? You have a king and then you have a god.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like you have this kind of
Yeah.
idea um, where you have someone who they're in charge of their kingdom,
Yep.
right? They're in charge of their island. They're in charge
Mhm.
of the balance they're in of taking care of their people, making sure their stuff is on lock. And then Godzilla is doing that on a global scale
Right.
where he's going
All the
where
oceans,
stuff
all the
pops up
surface
in
continents.
different places and then
Mhm.
handles business and then goes back into the ocean, back to his little
Mhm.
spot.
Mhm.
Um, so, but he is the same thing. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
It's all about bringing balance and order, and the rest of the world sees it as, and rightly so, as
Mhm.
destruction.
Apocalypse.
He rolls up into
Yeah.
San Francisco and just like lays waste, goes to Japan, lays waste.
Yeah.
People are like, that ain't cool.
Mhm.
That's destruction, man.
Yeah.
But then Monarch is the organization that can take a step back, look at it objectively. I'm like, wait, what was he doing? Why
Mhm.
was he here? We've been
Why now?
watching him for
Mhm.
decades. He doesn't come out unless
There's a
there's a
existential
there's
threat.
a threat to something bigger. And he's like, one city ain't worth the world, you know, and if
Yeah.
I don't nip this in the bud here, then this is going to turn into a bigger thing.
And
Excuse
I
me.
think Godzilla and Kong, they represent those godlike natural forces that human beings have a really hard time understanding. I think the example with Kong versus Samuel Jackson is a little microcosm of that, because Kong is protecting the island at large, because if the humans keep dropping the seismic charges, the giant reptilian monsters are going to come out and totally upset the balance of everything. But Samuel L. Jackson and his troop, they don't know any of that. So all they can think of, Kong killed my squad, kill
Right.
Kong.
Right.
You know, and
Which
the same
is
thing happened in Godzilla in San Francisco.
right. Well, it's kind of like the same mentality, but it's limited.
Yeah,
I think it's like a myopic
more
view.
tunnel vision.
Right. Where it's you're not wrong to want to defend your troop, but you lack the
Wood for the trees,
objectivity.
Sam.
Yeah,
Wood for
yeah.
the trees.
You're not seeing the forest, you're just seeing the tree in front of you. And I think that that's an interesting thing that happens to us in life in general, is how oftentimes we kind of get sidetracked
Yeah.
or blinded by whatever is directly in front of us, and looking at it from a bigger perspective. I mean, man, my life back in 2017 versus now, like what, that's like 7-8 years.
Hey, you brought up a really good time frame, actually, because for me, I was very much lost in the sauce as well. Yeah.
It's like 2017 was kind of the end of the business that I was building in Oregon, where I stepped away from that. And then I moved back to Colorado, and I was like broken in so many ways. It was just like physically, emotionally, spiritually. I was just drained and just not doing well.
Your Skull Island was sinking.
And so I needed to, well, it's like in the scene where he gets like bashed up, he gets cut by all like the helicopters and everything, and then he gets attacked by like a squid, and it's just like, God, fucking, you know,
heavy, where's the crown?
And he's just like sitting there, just kind of literally licking his wounds, right? So it was kind of bad for me. It was coming back to like kind of a safe place where I could lick my wounds and figure out my next move. And then repositioned, established myself, and really looked at what am I good at? What do I want to do? It was a really like reframing where I wanted to go in my life, knowing where I had just come from, with a little bit of objectivity. And then proceeded to start building that, and getting to the place where I am now, where I feel completely grateful, like so much gratitude. And it's not lost on me. It still feels like a dream in some respects. Like, oh my God, this is my life. This is what's happening. You know, like I have a dream job. I have a beautiful house. I have an amazing wife. I have so much in my life that it's just, my friends are awesome. I do this podcast for fun. You know, like, hey, I want to do a podcast. Okay, let's do it. You know, like I have that available to me. It's not something that I have to go like, oh, one day maybe. Like I'm at a point in my life where I'm realizing all of those things where I said, oh, maybe one day.
Yeah.
Right. Ooh. Like my 2023 for me was, oh, maybe one day. It was like a 15-year journey.
Yeah.
For me to arrive at 2023, where
that's really good perspective for us listeners, in your presence, because it sometimes the arc can take that long for you to establish,
or longer, or less,
or longer, or less.
No, there's no really prescript amount of time that it just takes the time that it takes. And for me, I think I took the road of betting on me. And I think that ties back into King Kong, because Kong always bets on Kong.
Yeah.
Like you have to have this level of self-belief and a little bit of arrogance.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to go ahead and take out all these choppers.
He had zero hesitation in meeting any threat.
You know, he just jumped in.
Any threat.
And he just, he knew his strength. He knew who he was, and he bet on himself every time.
And Ian, I think you touched on something too that's really relatable. Is Kong was comfortable until the humans came, upset the balance, and then Kong is recognizing that he cares about this small, beautiful, precious being, that he wants to
Mm-hmm.
protect, and he's experiencing love for the first time since maybe his family or clan
If he
was wiped
remembers,
out,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But then in that process of protecting and caring and devoting himself to that, he's attacked from all sides. Like, he's attacked by the humans, he's attacked by the other larger rival predators
Yep.
on the island, and in his tenacity of protecting his woman, of
Mm-hmm.
protecting what's precious to him, he like reasserts and rediscovers his kingship on the island. After he's threatened from all sides, he defeats those threats and he's licking his wounds. He's like, oh right, I am king.
Right.
This is my island.
Yeah, and I think that there's a tie-in to that in life where you have these moments where you have to sit back and really take stock of that.
Mm-hmm. You
I
have to
think
sit on the cliff and look over the horizon.
because I think it's really easy to get into Samuel L. Jackson's mindset in life,
Mm.
and I think there's a time and place for that as well. I don't think that that is completely
Mm-hmm.
misguided. I think sometimes you do have to
One pointed
narrow
focus.
your focus and
Mm-hmm.
just accomplish
Mace
that.
Windu.
Yeah. Ironically, Sam Jackson as well. With the only purple lightsaber in the universe. I love it. It's so good. But there's a time and a place to narrow your focus and to really just attack something and isolate it and achieve it. I think that that's part of the bigger narrative. I think that's part of the bigger picture of looking at, okay, here is my world. Here's my kingdom. And what do I need to do to maintain it
Mm-hmm.
and have it prosper? I think that's the other thing too. Is like there's a difference between maintenance
Mm-hmm.
and prosperity.
Ooh, you're touching on something, because the human beings didn't just bring chaos and havoc, they also brought a new possibilities for Kong. Not just the possibility of loving something other than himself, his island, his resources, but also they open up the possibility of bringing him to a new home, especially in the Monarch trilogy.
Right.
They introduce new possibilities to Kong, so Kong has to reevaluate what newness and new influences am I willing to let into my life, my kingdom, and where do the boundaries need to be placed in terms of not up in here, don't upset the balance, don't threaten me, don't threaten my own, while also, hey, I do want to explore what's possible. I do want to explore what love means. I
And
want
the
to,
help, like you see that
yeah,
in like Kong X Godzilla's when they like team up.
yeah.
They go and they check in on him because they're keeping tabs on him.
On Skull Island or
On
when he's in
he's
Hollow Earth?
Hollow Earth.
Okay.
And he has a fucked up tooth.
Oh,
Like he
right.
cracked his tooth on something and it's
That's
all
right.
infected and everything. And so they like, and he's getting bashed up. And so they
Yeah.
like pull him out.
He would have died in his natural state.
Yeah.
He
So
would have totally died.
they
Yeah.
like, they drug him, they pull him out. They have somebody
That was
come
a
in.
whole scene.
Yeah. So they have
The
someone
whole
come in
thing.
and like drill out his tooth and like replace it with titanium or whatever
Mhm.
special alloy
Mhm.
they're using. And without human intervention, that's gone the way of
Yep.
many
Law of the
predators.
jungle.
Their thing
Mhm.
busts, they can't eat because they're in too much pain and
Mhm.
they die.
I mean, elephants typically don't die until their teeth wear out.
How old do elephants live?
I mean, from what I understand, they can live, 60 to 80 years even. It's really just once their teeth and wear out.
And they can't eat anymore.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's usually, obviously for the African elephants, there's predators up the wazoo.
Sure, but they are also one of the most feared in
They're
the
king
yeah
of their environment.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people when they're just like, oh, what's the most fierce animal in the bush, or in the Sahara, and they're like,
Hippos.
I mean, hippos,
elephants.
hippos are up there.
Yeah.
But people wouldn't naturally think elephant. They would think like
Lion.
or like
Mhm.
snake or poison or something. And it's like, nah.
Yeah.
This big tusketed beast.
Which is, I think that's a good pointer right there. Is it's a gentle giant that is willing to not be gentle when it's called for.
Right. I think that that's really the lesson, if we're taking lessons, if we're making
Yeah.
lessons, if we're trying to
Yeah.
derive lessons from.
Yeah.
I think Kong is a embodiment of that, of that idea of I will only be fierce when I need to be, and I can be gentle, obviously, but people won't give me the ability to be gentle. And then you're starting to go into the Beauty and the Beast kind of mentality as well, where people want to slay the beast because all they see is the beast. They don't see the soft side. They don't see the gentleness. They don't see the care or the consideration or the love that's possible. They just black and white it. They're just like, oh, beast, demon, kill it.
And you can imagine, if Kong could speak, if he's being pestered from all sides by the Gastons and Samuel L. Jacksons of the world, he would be like, fine, I'll be the beast that you all see me as.
And that's what he does most often, is he's just like, fine,
like, this is what you want. This is what you get.
Yeah. You want to paint me this way? Have fun with it. Have fun with the result. And I think that there's a lesson in there too. Look at all these lessons.
Yeah.
Is when people start, this is going to tie into boundaries.
I love it.
So when people start setting boundaries, or they start changing their way, there's a requirement on the larger community to change their perception around somebody. So if somebody did something, like, I don't know, is a lunch stealer at like work, and they're like steal lunches.
If we're pulling from archetypes, that's you, Kimmy. You're a lunch stealer. You're a lean cuisine lunch stealer.
So, and they are like, they feel bad. They want to like seek restoration within the group, and they apologize in sincerity, and they're changing their ways. If the community continues to shun them and treat them like shit because of that, and you see this unfortunately time and time again in our criminal justice quote unquote system, is that people revert back to their ways because, like, oh, you're going to see me as a criminal.
Yeah,
always.
The Matrix has painted them that way.
Right. Like, I'm trying to change. I'm trying to represent and be something better or different. And you're not allowing me to. You're not giving me any sort of space.
You're making me swim upstream.
You're requiring me. You're holding me against this picture and this light. And there's a certain level that you're going to have to deal with if you're coming from a place of historical consistency. Like, you've always been that way up until a certain point.
You've established a karma, so to speak.
Right. So there's going to be a little bit that you're always going to have to kind of combat with that. But if the community at large does not allow you the opportunity to change, doesn't give you the opportunity to present in a different way, you never will. You'll always revert back to that thing, because it's like you have that constant pressure. There's always going to be a breaking point where you revert and you go, and then everyone validates it and goes like, see, I told you he hasn't. And it's just like, well, if you hadn't been like riding me to death, then I probably would have had a different outcome, but you weren't giving me a fucking inch to work with. And it's like, there's a responsibility, I think, on a community scale, where if someone is really trying to change and they're really trying to restore, I think that there's a responsibility on the community side to give some grace and some space for that person trying to reestablish themselves in a different light.
Yeah, that was a beautiful branch off, Ian. Great pull. I'm thinking of what is possible when the human beings working with Kong, they learn that, oh, he is a force to be reckoned with. He's fierce. He's bestial when he needs to be. Bestial.
Sure.
He's a monster when he needs to be a monster, right? But at the same time, I love those later Monarch movies because they show that Kong is not the monster. There are actual evil monsters out there.
And he's a guardian,
right? And when the community is wise enough to know that, there are fierce beings, there's a fierceness that is required to be successful in life and to hold boundaries and to maintain order in the world. you have to allow space for that, room to breathe, because there's real evil out there that does need to be fought.
Right. That is, if left unobstructed, would
Yes.
take over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is the delineating factor within the King Kong universe and the Monarch world and everything. Is like, there are forces that are on team evil.
Yeah. They are nefarious.
And there's
malignant.
none of that restorative justice.
Nope.
Let them have a moment. Like, no, that
Pure destruction.
just needs to be snuffed if the light is going to win. And, but there are imperfect allies that I think that is something that we see a lot in a lot of different communities too.
Imperfect allies.
Yeah. So it's something, it's a term that I picked up from a Dave Chappelle special.
Okay.
And he's talking about in the LGBTQIA plus community, as he refers to as like the alphabet people, which I can understand why they could be considered offensive, but it's a joke. So people just kind of need to have a softer skin or harder skin around it. Anyway, he talks about, you're going to have imperfect allies in a fight towards equality, in a fight towards tolerance. You're going to have people who look like adversaries who aren't going to be perfect. They're not going to use.
They're still working through their callousness and ignorance, and
at their bedrock, they support and they care.
They care,
and they're going to present in ways that is unclean, and they're not going to be perfect. And I think, unfortunately, so many people are expecting allyship to be perfect, like zero question asked, no missteps. Everyone shows up and does exactly what's required. And that level of adherence, I think, doesn't allow people to be human, which we're inherently flawed. We don't get things perfect from jump. And I think that's how we learn. I don't think we learn from being perfect. I think we learn more from when we screw up, and how do we change from there. And I think what happens is that you alienate so many people who would be an ally, and you push them into the camp where, like, oh, you want me to be the evil beast? Fine, I'll be the evil beast. Like,
that's a really good point. Yeah. Wow. Another great pull, Ian. I love seeing how the vision of Kong and how he's been pushed, and how human beings have killed Kong so many times archetypally.
right.
How that paints society in the modern era, where we have the capacity to awaken, those large natural godlike forces in response to the impact that we're all having on the planet. And I think that's what Kong represents now in the zeitgeist, is what happens when we upset the balance of nature and civilization and progress and evolution. Is, you have nature waking up and being like, hey, I'm trying to hold the space for all the little beings to be on this floating rock in space, and to have equilibrium. But if you're going to drop depth charges, and you're going to build factories without any consciousness of the impact,
right,
I'm going to have to wipe the slate clean at some point.
Yeah. There is that intrinsic good archetypes as well that come in. I think that's what I like about Kong, is he's imperfect. He's not, he is flawed. He slaps people and does, kills things just out of necessity. And he doesn't have,
there's a lot of collateral damage around him.
Right. And it's not necessarily his intention, but he's not perfect, and you do have archetypes from different TV shows, like, I don't know, Captain Planet.
That's a deep cut.
Of the character who, like, just is like, save the earth, period. I bestow upon you humans 5 rings or 4 rings, and they're all elemental, and we're going to use the elements to save the planet. Goddamn right. And there's an importance to having those archetypes too, but they're also flawed in their perfection,
in their one dimensionality,
right? Because they're just like, just one thing, and I'm like, it's a nuance.
Yeah,
it's a nuance. Because then if you're really striving for only that, then there's like, where is the tolerance? Where is the understanding for the imperfect? Because it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be all just one color. It's like, you need You need the full spectrum
Mm-hmm.
of understanding. And in that effort as well, you would also argue that like the dark has its place, you know?
Right.
It's using like Star Wars as the analogy. It's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a light side and a dark side, and it's always about the balance. So
Yeah.
using, King Kong
Mm-hmm.
as the idea of like the restored things back to neutral, restore things back to balance, and holding a line, like that is not the absence of the dark side. It's not the
Right.
absence of evil. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the desire to eradicate all those things.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not seeing, well, we have evil as one conversation. I think it
Mhm.
can also be paired with the generic evolutionary pressure that Kong is experiencing all the time. Whether that's the other beasts on the island, whether that's Samuel L. Jackson coming in with the bombs. There's so much evolutionary pressure for Kong and for every individual human being, let alone our species, all the time, and evil is a part of that. I believe that evil, like you just spoke to, though it does need to be faced whenever it is brought to light. It needs to be faced, but at the same time, like you said, it sharpens the sword of consciousness, when it
Yeah.
when it meets the light.
Well, there's a balancing act
Mm-hmm.
that happens, and it's all about balance.
Mm-hmm.
And if all you had was 100% light all the time, there's a shadow, ironically, a shadow
Right.
side to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's also things that can seep in that are not necessarily good. And
Mm-hmm.
like I was talking about with just having a myopic focus on just one thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to allow that to come into a dictatorial mindset of
Yeah.
like anything that falls outside of this I will murder, just like
Yeah.
I will kill it. And it's just that isn't good, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
negative side of the light. And you could argue that it's evil seeping in, but I would say that that is the negative side of when you have too much purity, like too much
Yeah.
of one thing. It's just it creates a space where there's not all of this like, tolerance and acceptance and love for all the things that exist outside of that.
I mean, I think you're pointing to something important, and I know this is not King Kong, but I was trying to think of other archetypes that are exemplifying what you're saying about too much light. I was just thinking of the Jedi and how like kind of boring they can be if it's just 100% purity monk mode. No edge, no.
Well, we see what happens when in that universe when the light is in its highest. I mean, like in its form, when you see the rise of the Sith,
Mm-hmm.
because the Sith rise to meet that.
Yeah.
They rise to topple that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there always needs to be that balance in this dualistic world that we live in. There is always a need for balance.
We're
There's always a
relating Kong to Anakin, is what you're saying, bringing balance to the Force.
um who would Kong be if he was a Jedi? Who would he be? Because Anakin is too emotional.
I know, but I mean, Kong's very emotional too.
Yeah, but is he Darth Vader?
No, I think he's more pure than that. He's pure in nature's kind of pure. I don't know, but I,
Because
I was
he's
just
not
thinking.
Obi-Wan.
No, no, I was just thinking of, Kong uses ferocity and tenacity and primal power to bring balance, and then once the
Qui-Gon,
humans,
maybe?
ooh, that's a good one. I
I think it's
mean,
more Qui-Gon, because Qui-Gon
yeah,
wasn't afraid to go hard
yeah,
when needed.
the negotiations have been cut short.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
he is, but he also has that wisdom of balance.
yeah.
I don't think Kong has the same level of wisdom and discernment, but
No, no, but he knows when to bring out power for
yeah.
the sake of balance.
I think as far as touching something on part of the conversation as well, it's about knowing thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Kong knows exactly who
Oh
he
yeah,
is.
no question,
He knows
no question.
exactly who he is. There's no debate for him. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to question it. And I think that that's interesting, how much of a struggle that is for humans, is this idea of like knowing thyself. And I think that it's our gift and our curse of having this self-reflection, of being conscious of our existence. Therefore, it's up for debate. Like, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? What's my purpose?
Mhm.
A dog doesn't ask those questions.
Yeah,
So,
that's beautiful, Ian. I'm thinking of, each of us are on our own little Skull Island, ruling over it, whether we know it or not.
right.
And I kind of like that as a tie into, I mean, Carl Jung was known to have said that the ego self, the conscious ego self, is an island on a vast ocean of unconsciousness. And the ego's job is to maintain and grow that island and to make sure it's well nourished and balanced and that it's drawing nourishment from the ocean
Mm,
always, so that it can bear greater and greater fruits and be more nuanced and be able to hold more paradox and
mm,
you know and allow for newness to come in when necessary, but also, like you spoke to maintain proper boundaries so that the ecosystem doesn't get thrown out of whack
right.
and get disintegrated.
Right.
Yeah. So how do we each be, know ourselves enough to know, like, hey, I'm the king of this island. I'm the
Right.
queen of this island.
Right.
I'm responsible for all the native indigenous life here. And if I'm not taking responsibility for the power that each of us have, I never forget the power that you have over your island,
Yeah, that's great.
right?
No, I
and
love
and
that.
to not be afraid to bring out that primal power that each of us have access to when needed,
Yep.
and to draw upon it. And if you don't feel like you have access to that power, that's a conversation that needs to be had with yourself.
I mean, that's a real big conversation for so many people that I am grateful that I woke up to this idea earlier in my life. I would say like in my 20s.
Okay.
I wasn't like 9, like having it all figured out.
Could have fooled us, Ian. Could have fooled us.
No, it's been a ride. It's been a ride of self-discovery. But like I would say that in my 20s, I came to this realization that the amount of agency that I have in my life, I think it's very easy for us to feel like a victim of our experience,
Yeah.
and a victim of our life, and a victim of the different things that are cast upon us. And to be fair, also, there are people who are starting off with a much more
Harder
disenfranchised.
hand
Yeah, they have their
to
cards.
work with.
Their cards are rougher.
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
kind
they
of
do not have a royal flush.
right. They're not dealing
Yeah.
with like a lot of high cards,
Mhm.
or cards that match.
Yeah.
And I get that, and it's not lost on me, like
Mhm.
the amount of buttloads of privilege that I've been handed in my
Both of
life,
us. Mhm.
and I get that. But I also know that just because I've come from a privileged place doesn't mean that I haven't struggled, doesn't mean that I haven't had to overcome some stuff, doesn't mean that I haven't
You don't have a voice
worked.
in this conversation.
Yeah, like it's not like I
Mhm.
haven't ever worked for things, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Anyway, the reason why I say that is because it's like it could come across very elitist to say like, oh, just pick yourself up by your
Yeah, just
bootstraps
know
and just do it.
thyself
Just
and
do it.
yeah.
What are you talking about?
Mhm.
There are true things and really heavy things that people have to work through and overcome,
There are a lot of threats out in the jungle.
but that does not
Mhm.
change the fact that as a human on this planet, you have a lot of agency around your circumstance and around your situation. And one thing that I always loved to tell my friends or clients when I was doing personal training or in men's work circles, and it was a nice piece of reflection, is you're basically 2 decisions away from having a completely different life.
Mm.
Like, you don't like your situation, leave your job and move to a different state. Your life will be completely different.
Yeah.
Get out of that abusive relationship and stop eating gluten. Like
Mhm.
just 2 choices. I say 2 choices. Sometimes it's one big move, but
Sure.
it's usually 2. It's usually like do something geographical, like get yourself at it, and then do something physical, like move.
Yes.
Like put yourself in a different position physically and emotionally. So sometimes that's getting your diet in order. Sometimes that's changing up your relationship issues. Like if you are a buoy in the ocean in your social group, you feel so isolated and alone and no one gets you, you're in the wrong fucking
Yeah, you
room.
are.
You're in the wrong room.
Yep.
Like, don't be there.
Yeah.
Stop fighting for scraps and go to a place where you are part of the
Mhm.
feast. Like,
Ooh.
like you need to be surrounded by people
that can help you know yourself, nourish
Either
you.
help you level up through love and understanding, or surround yourself with people who understand and get you to the point where they see the value that you intrinsically have. But that starts with you understanding that you have intrinsic value. You have to come at it from that perspective of like, the things that make me me are valuable.
Yes. I think you're speaking to something awesome, Ian, in that, like you said, Kong knows who he is. He knows what he is. And I think one of the key aspects of him that he represents for us in this conversation is he is proactivity made manifest.
Oh yeah.
He sees something out of balance. He does what is needed immediately.
Yes.
Like he just moves.
He takes action. He doesn't see a helicopter flying in and be like, yeah, I'll deal with that later.
What do I think about this? He's on it.
No, he goes and he takes action. And I think that agency, that level of like capability to take action on your circumstance, and trust me, sometimes that is a 5 to 10 year goal.
Right.
Sometimes it's not as easy as swatting a helicopter out of the sky instantaneously. But every single journey of a 10-year journey starts with one step, starts with something that you do today. You have to have the self-awareness to know what it is that you're working towards. But it is all possible. It is all available. It is all in that, just for us, for the taking. And you have to recognize, if you are finding yourself with that level of opposition on a daily basis, that you're probably on the wrong island.
Yeah. I mean, like you just spoke to, it all starts with like, hey, I'm the king or queen of this island. Okay. Now I can actually be proactive from that place and bring balance and meet threats and challenges and do something.
Right. From that position of power and self-awareness and self-knowledge. And Kong really teaches us that. Teaches us that we have the ability, and it's right there for us to take if we just want to reach out and take it. And you have to do it. No one's coming to save you. There's not an entity that is you're constantly waiting on somebody or something,
who's not on the island,
right, to come in and take care of business. And really, you are the one to take care of business, and that self responsibility and that self accountability and that self knowledge and awareness of self really comes back to that. At the end of the day, it comes back to how well do you know yourself from that position, and where do you want to see yourself? And if there's a separation between those two things, then it's all about balance of bringing those two things into harmony. It's like if you see yourself on one side of the spectrum and you're trying to get to the other side of the spectrum, what do you need to do to make that happen? And you can usually walk it back to see what needs to happen for that to be possible. And there's also a reality check for some people where they recognize like that's not going to happen. And I don't want to discredit anybody's dreams. I always say shoot for the stars, or shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll end up amongst the stars. So you'll get close, and maybe that dream will shift and change. And I'll end it for myself here with a story, and then Patrick, I'll pass it off to you for closing thoughts. So I thought I was going to be a musician professionally. I wanted to make it, quote unquote, make it, and have my life being music and performing. And I had this gut punch awareness hit me. It was like New Year's Day, and I was alone in a grocery store shopping for food. And it was like a gut punch, and I just started crying, like crying in a Whole Foods or something. I was devastated, because I'd been working at this dream for 16 some odd years, and I had tried with all intensity to like make it a reality. I was living in Oregon with my bandmate, and we were trying to do it professionally, and it culminated for us. And the biggest one that we did was like a national tour. We run around the country and we're performing, and that was a lot of fun. but it was like we made like $800.
Yeah.
You know, it was,
Yeah. It was more of a passion project.
100%.
Yeah.
Like it was just like our cost minus everything. It was just like we made like
I'm
800
just
bucks.
respecting that you were working at that dream for, half of my lifetime.
You know, it was something that I was really like wanting to do, and I've been a part of several groups. I've done solo stuff. I've played guitar outside of like wine stores, you know, like singing and have like a little,
like busking.
yeah, but yeah, exactly. It was a little more intentional than busking, because it was like, you know, hired by the when I started B music, like I went in there, be like, hey, do you need music? And like, oh, that'd be great. And I went in a 3-hour set by myself.
Wow.
That's a lot of content to film.
Yeah.
It's a lot of covers, a lot of original stuff. Anyway, so I tried that for a while, and it just wasn't clicking for me. And it wasn't as potent of a thing where it's like, I need this or I'm gonna not breathe, you know. I have other interests. I can do other things professionally. And what I came to is I had to let that dream go, so that way I could re-engage with music in a way where it was from originally, which was from a place of love of doing it, not from a place of I need to make it, I need to be a professional and get paid for this. It was like, why am I making music to begin with? It's like, I love music. So how do I re-engage with it in a way that is coming much more from that place, as opposed to this desire to make it happen? And when I let that go, it created space for me to find other things in my life. And so there's a time and a place to push forward. And there was this interview with Seth Rogen, and they were asking him, like, what's the difference between you and somebody who doesn't make it? And he's like, I just didn't quit. So I didn't stop. And there's too many stories like that of either actors or performers who just didn't stop, and they eventually made it. Jelly Roll's another one. He's a huge country person now. Like he won Best New Artist or something, but he's been in the game.
He just had the tenacity, and
he just didn't stop. Yeah. And then he caught his break. He caught his win. And it's like, and there are numerous stories of people who never caught their break. But their life was filled with doing what they loved. So that's why I never tried to discredit people from doing something that they feel that passionate about, that intrinsic of who they are.
If they enjoy the process that much.
If you enjoy that much, it shouldn't matter whether or not you quote unquote make it, because at the end of the day, you spent your life doing that thing, maybe without the validation that you desired, but at the same time, you spent the time doing the things that you love doing. You didn't like become a
sellout or
a teller at Wells Fargo. Or something as an artist,
right?
You know? And sometimes you need to do that to make ends meet while you do your art. So there's like no
how are you doing it? How are you balancing that?
Yeah. So closing thoughts, Patrick?
I loved hearing more of your musical origin story and how you see that relating to grit, passion, balance. That's beautiful. Something that's just really hitting me about our conversation about Kong is just remembering when you're really trying to build your kingdom or queendom, remembering that, and I speak from experience here, it can be easy as a human being to feel like you're a sad little creature in a big, dark jungle of threats. But remember what you are. You know, not just who you are, but what you are. And it can, like I said, it can be easy to feel like a sad little creature that doesn't have fangs and can't run like the lions. But in reality, we are built as a powerful, fierce creature, a representative of this earth. You know, we are a spirit made flesh, in my belief. And what that brings, you know, is not only are each of us capable of becoming physically powerful, mentally sharp, emotionally expressive and creative, spiritually potent and powerful, each of us is a fierce beast if we want to be. And no, a human being will never be a lion, but we can get damn close. And if you think about it, if you look at human beings and their potential, the lions respect us as the king of the jungle when it comes down to it. So if you see yourself as the king or queen of your island, you can make yourself into a fearsome creature full of life force energy, able to protect, provide, bring balance, go after your dreams, and just never forget you're not a sad creature. You are a powerful, powerful being, and that is the honor of being a human on the earth.
Remember who you are.
Remember who you are, remember what you are, and watch King Kong again after this conversation.
Especially Skull Island. It's great.
Yeah. Amen. And Monarch too.
Yes, Monarch's here. Oh my God, Monarch!
Yeah,
The series
yeah.
is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Ian,
Awesome.
did you have any idea that was going to blossom into
No,
what it did?
of course not.
Thank you,
No.
Kong, for being
why I
more
love
than
these
just a creature
conversations.
feature.
Hell yeah.
Man.
Awesome. Thanks for checking us out, everybody. Looking forward to the next one, and
We'll be back.
let us know what you thought.
All right. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. See ya.